Hey everyone, it's Editor Nate. This episode went on forever. Ben just kept throwing more and more and more on the pile. This is like 2 hours and 15 minutes. So, here's where I'm going to hard sell the Patreon. You see, we had to cut down a whole bunch for length, and because once you get down one rabbit hole, you just keep falling and falling and falling, and we just got off on these awful tangents. So if you want to listen to all that for some reason, go to Patreon. Throw us $2. There's going to be a lot of extra footage up there from this episode. And tell us that it was the Skinwalker episode that got you. This fucking episode was what finally convinced you to go on Patreon. Are you serious? Alright, everyone, it's Words About Books. This week, we're going to be discussing another Star Wars book, The Hunt for Skywalker. It's going to be pretty awesome. I hear it's about, finding the real guy who inspired George Lucas to write Luke. I guess that was a thing, kind of like the Hunt for General Tsao. So, it's pretty awesome. I'm Nate, as always, and I'm joined by Ben. How's it going, Ben?
It's going good, but you may have misunderstood my email.
Oh.
We're actually covering The Hunt for the Skinwalker, Science confronts the unexplained at a remote ranch in Utah.
Science confronts the unexplained at a remote ranch in California is The Hunt for Skywalker. It's just like a 2 states over, right?
Yeah. So, we're having a bit of a bye week this week. We're between 2 real books. So I decided we would cover... It's the rare nonfiction book we cover on Words About Books. We've done this a handful of times. Every time I sort of preface it with the reason we don't talk about a lot of nonfiction books, which is because they, usually when you're talking nonfiction, you're talking more about the subject matter of the book than necessarily the way the book is written or anything like that. I decided to make an exception in this case because it stands out in its genre. You need to know a few things about me.
Okay.
Okay. I have a wide variety of interests. Okay.
Oh God, this is never a good sign.
Any one of which I could do a whole podcast on, but specifically, I have a fascination with the paranormal and magic and folklore and mythology and such. And I that's not to say I believe in any of it, which makes me weird, because I am both the target and not the target audience for this sort of thing, because I want it, but I don't believe it's necessarily real. So this is the specific subgenre of UFO / paranormal / ghost / government conspiracy / Bigfoot / poltergeist activity / trickster god.
Okay. I gotta tell you, I don't know what Skinwalker is or what they're doing.
Okay, so here's the thing about
this is gonna be interesting when you're throwing all that stuff into a pot.
If you don't know what a Skinwalker is, I'll give you a brief intro, okay? Much as the book does, this book will give you a brief intro of what a Skinwalker is. And I love the way the book presents it. First off, the Skinwalker is a Native American Indian, particularly like a Navajo, the southern sort of groups of Native American tribes, all have a kind of Skinwalker legend. And the first thing you should probably know about the Skinwalker is that it is a witch. Not all witches are skinwalkers, but all skinwalkers are witches. They're usually dark.
All lagers are beer, but not all beers are lagers, because it could be
Most
ale.
people use a square and a rectangle to explain that concept, but
I like mine better.
So it's like a negative. It's a practitioner of like dark magics, and they're not good. They're taken quite seriously, and the thing that the Native Americans really don't like is when white people take that legend and apply it to their nonsense. And that's how the book starts. He starts with this book
we're gonna bring in science to this.
The book that chose to title itself "Hunt for the Skinwalker." They're not hunting for a skinwalker, by the way. What? That's a misleading title.
I would say that is an outright lie if they're not actually hunting for a skinwalker, Ben.
The hunt is adjacent to a skinwalker. Maybe. Hear me out, okay?
All right.
Okay. So the only legends we know about skinwalkers and its relation to Native American lore, the elders of the tribe tend not to want to talk about this stuff because the white people who ask them about it haven't always used it respectfully in the past, And there's been a lot of instances
they write books about it.
Yeah. And the I'm telling you, man, the dissonance here is like this book like readily acknowledges all of that. They're like, they hate when we do that. So here's
and then they do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they talk about so they're like, they don't like it when you talk about skinwalkers. So here's like 15 pages on what a skinwalker is. That's also not even why we're here. Didn't even need to do that. So there is a place called Skinwalker Ranch, and UFO paranormal people are going to know that this is a very famous thing in certain circles I run in. But for the benefit of the people on this podcast who may not know that, there's going to be two groups of people listening to this. One that is like, obviously everyone knows what Skinwalker Ranch is. And the second group is like, what the hell are you talking about?
I don't think I'd want to go to a ranch called Skinwalker Ranch. In fact, I think you have mentioned this before on this podcast, and I said those exact same things. Don't think I want to be hanging around someone who owns and operates a ranch called Skinwalker Ranch.
It's a cattle ranch, and the people that owned it didn't call it Skinwalker Ranch.
Okay, well, they have a lot of sense then.
It has come to be known as Skinwalker Ranch. So it is this place in the Uinta Basin in Utah where there are reportedly tons of paranormal activity. Everything you can think of happens on this ranch. You got your ghosts, you got your aliens, you got your orbs, you got your crop circles, Bigfoot.
And sometimes they show up at the same time and they get really mad at each other. Like, no, this was my night to draw crop circles. I'm like, nuh-uh. I'm here to haunt it. Look, bring out the calendar, dude. It's Sunday. And the alien's like, oh, shit, fuck. You're right. My bad. I thought it was Monday. I'll be back tomorrow. And they fly away in their flying saucer.
So this book is... you're presenting theories that are just as valid as anything presented in the book. But I need you to know something. You might be thinking, if you're a novice, okay, this is who this podcast is for, the novice paranormal enthusiast. You may be thinking, boy, I bet it would be fun to listen or to a bunch of people talk about UFOs, or boy, I bet some of these UFO books would be really, really fun, just as like nonsense to listen to. I bet it would be like listening to Alan Moore talk about magic. It's not. For the most part, it's just really boring.
Oh.
But
that's unfortunate.
The Hunt for the Skinwalker is the rare paranormal book that is not boring as shit.
Oh, hey, okay. You're bringing me back. I thought you were saying it was boring. I was like, well, no. This is going to suck.
I mean, it gets there. It gets there eventually. It does eventually get into the nerd stuff. But like the first third of this book is just scary story after scary story. It's awesome. It's also...
But not about the Skinwalker, it's about the Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah, so a Skinwalker in, like, modern lore, there is an actual Native American Skinwalker, and I don't know enough about the actual mythology to really get into what a Skinwalker's powers are supposed to be, but some people consider them to have...
Why are they called a Skinwalker? Do they shapeshift? Does
Yeah,
their
a little
skin walk
bit.
around? Oh, okay. The term is never used for healers, is what this says.
No, it's never a good thing to be a Skinwalker. It is a very serious bad thing. I'm not going to get into, like, the difference between Skinwalkers and Wendigos, because that's, like... The internet has kind of, like...
Wendigos were just, like, a type of, like, mythical animal, like the chupacabra. Is that not the case?
No, a Wendigo is usually a person... I think you're starting to see why, like, I love this stuff. But when it comes to things that, like, people actually believe in and are important to an actual culture, I don't want to go too deep into that, because the book really... It doesn't really have anything to do with what we're talking about. And I wouldn't even feel comfortable, like, necessarily using Skinwalker lore in a story of my own or something. It seems a little insensitive. I don't really know what the status of Skinwalker mythology is in the communities where it originated these days, which is why I don't want to go super into it. But yeah, basically it's a paranormal person who has supernatural powers, usually like speed, strength. They can make bad things happen to you. Yeah. So Skinwalker Ranch. It is what... Oh no, I don't want to start there. I'm going to go back a little bit to the authors. You should know
No.
who's writing this book.
Oh, jeez.
Okay.
All right.
This is what it's like to read most UFO books, by the way. There's just so much information. None of it matters. Okay. So this is a book written by two authors. Colm Kelleher, who is an actual scientist who studies molecular biology, I believe.
What?
I'll get to his involvement in a moment.
I did not think you were going to bring someone with credentials onto this, Ben. I thought you were going to be like, yeah, there's this guy. He's a doctor in thugonomics, and he got his PhD from the streets, and that's why he's going to hunt a skinwalker with science.
I'll tell you right now, nobody that cool is involved in, in UFO research. It's more like, this is Randy. He dropped out of high school and started smoking pot, but he pretends he went to Yale. And the government just erased his records. Which there is a guy like that. His name is Bob Lazar. That's a whole different thing.
Oh my god.
Is George Knapp, the other author, who is a journalist. He seems to have done a lot of legit journalism, I guess.
Okay, I was about to say, is he a real journalist? Sounds like he is. Okay.
He was. And I don't know if he is anymore. He is a long-time, like, paranormal enthusiast. He's done a bunch of guest spots on Coast to Coast AM, which, if you don't know, Coast to Coast AM is like the go-to
the real-life version of Space Ghost, Coast to Coast.
Coast to Coast AM is a radio show
I feel like
where
I stepped in something here.
it goes deep, man. It goes real deep. Coast to Coast AM is a radio show where you could talk about anything paranormal, aliens, Bigfoot, whatever. It's kind of like probably the most well-known media outlet. You could go look up episodes of it if you want. But George Knapp's on that a lot. He writes a big thing at the beginning of the book about the scientific community's lack of open-mindedness. And the lack of open-mindedness when we discuss anomalies. Because that's what's going on here at Skinwalker Ranch. We should probably stop calling it Skinwalker Ranch. if we want to take it seriously. But we'll call it the Gorman Ranch. It's not also...
like, named after the brothers from Majora's Mask?
So, the people who own the ranch, it's super easy to find out who they are, but they decided to change their names in the book. Their name is not the Gormans, but you could Google this, and it's in the Wikipedia who they actually are. So, like, I think it's Sherman I'll just tell you. It's the Sherman. Sherman
Yep.
Ranch.
Skinwalker Ranch, also known as Sherman Ranch. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
That was easy.
yeah, the people who own this, like I said, they were ranching cattle. They I'm sorry, I have to backtrack. This is peak UFO.
Jesus Christ.
I love this. So the scientific community's lack of open-mindedness. First thing you gotta know, we're starting off on that foot. We're attacking. So the scientific community and the mainstream media, mainstream
The
media.
lamestream media, am I right?
You are
Hashtag
right.
Trump did nothing wrong.
Well, this is where I struggle personally. Is I love when conspiracies were fun and not like Q. I like the
Or
X-Files.
like the Sandy Hook.
But I'll tell you, you got to be careful when you're dipping your toe into this community, right? This is why I'm giving you the guided tour. I'm telling you what it's okay to read. Because there is significant overlap between people who think there are aliens and Bigfoot and people who think the election was fake.
Yeah?
And that's not good. I just want you to keep a pin in this, that the claim that no money is spent on researching this because the scientific community is too close-minded, and no scientist is willing to take it on.
And because you're all broke?
Hear me out. Because no scientist is willing to take it on because it's so reputation damaging. But also, there's this huge government apparatus that is researching this all the time that, has all this information. So just
Okay.
balance
So,
that in your
You covered the two extremes that can't coexist. Okay.
Well, they do though. So
yeah, but like, okay, does that mean that So are the authors saying that they're broke, like they're destitute?
no, they're not broke. In fact, they're more well funded than most PhDs I know.
Yeah. So like, quit your bitching, I guess.
Well,
you've got money.
That is a takeaway.
Get out there and start your research.
They did.
Setting up field observation. Is that what this book is?
That's what this book is.
Hell yeah. What'd they find? Did they objectively prove the existence of ghosts?
So first, let's start with some legends about the ranch.
God damn it, Ben, you son of a bitch.
The Gormans, I guess I will call them, because that's what I'm going to keep reading in my notes because I'm using the book. The Gormans buy this ranch, right? And they are cattle breeders. They've got a herd of cattle, and they're expensive cattle with good genes, and they breed them. And they need a big old ranch for all these cattle.
Okay. I don't know how cattle ranching works, but I'll take your word for it, and I'll talk with my cattle ranching friend.
Everything I know about cattle ranching I learned from Hunt for the Skinwalker. Take that with a grain of salt.
I guess that is a source.
I rode a horse once in my life. I did okay. So they buy this ranch, right? And they get to the ranch, and like all the doors have locks. Like even the doors internal to the house. All the doors, like the door to the kitchen has like a deadbolt. All the doors have locks. And they think that's weird. But you know what? They're like, that's okay. You know, with Dream House, people who lived here were weird. But also there's one other thing. You're not, there's a title in the deed to the ranch that says if you're going to dig on the ranch, if you're going to do any serious digging, you have to contact the previous owners and tell them you're digging.
Kenneth and Edith Myers, who owned the ranch from 1934 to 1994?
Yes. But you're not. We got to change their names to protect their reputation.
Kenneth and Edith Mario.
Oscar Mayer.
There you go. Perfect. We nailed it. First try. All right, so they have to contact the previous owner, and that's like in a contract or something, like.
Yeah, that's in the deed.
That's in the deed. Okay. What if the previous owners are dead? Can you get out of it then?
Well, so I don't think anybody was ever going to do that, and I don't think they could even legally enforce it. So.
Yeah, the only way they could do is to sue you, and then they would have to win.
What are they trying to hide, though? What do they know?
minerals, Ben, oil. There was a mass grave. They just
That's more
buried
what I was
tons
thinking.
and
I was more
tons.
thinking that these people killed somebody, and
Yeah.
there's just bodies on the ranch. But I don't know. They could be making it up. I don't know. So
Now, is this something that the authors of the book have they seen the deed? Do they know this is true, or are they making it up? Like, are we sure?
I don't
that
know,
is
but
in the
I'll
deed?
tell you, the authors of the book have a patron, a wealthy real estate tycoon named Bob Bigelow.
Oh,
That's
I
not
thought
a
you meant
fake name.
Patreon. Okay,
No.
Bob Bigelow, European gigolo. All right.
Yeah, they got a Bob Bigelow. He's got a bunch of money, and he loves the paranormal. And
Interesting. Bob Bigelow over here is the next owner of said ranch.
yes, because they buy it to research it.
Okay, so Terry and Gwen Gorman, they are only there for like 2 years.
Yes, that's all they
Okay,
could take.
Ben, you got
that's all they could take.
All right. All right. What happened during those 2 years, Ben? What have you got for me?
Okay,
They got
first
weird
thing.
deadbolts. You can't dig without contacting the previous owner, the Oscar Myers.
I'm going to read you an excerpt from the book, and I'm going to try to do it without laughing.
Oh, jeez.
Tom had the perfect eyesight of a trained marksman, and he knew from half a mile away that this animal was big. The approaching shape was much too big for a coyote. His wife Ellen joined him, an unspoken question in her eyes. Tom briefly nodded his head in the direction of the animal, and she too began to look puzzled. The thing was about 400 yards away, and the closer it got, the bigger it looked.
And they
So
went
the-
inside. They got some ash arrows.
It looked like a giant wolf, right? And you're right.
Ash arrows. Yeah.
You're right. This is very similar to the first scene of A Court of Thorns and Roses. Anyway, the fairy is approaching them, and it looks like a giant wolf. And the animal. I'm gonna return to my excerpt. The animal began walking casually toward the family, unconcerned but obviously determined to make some kind of contact. It appeared completely tame. Tom glanced at the corral 70 feet to his right, where he had just unloaded several of his prize Angus calves. Okay, so here's the thing. He winds up shooting this wolf, right?
With an ash arrow, because otherwise it'll just
it's not with an
heal.
ash arrow, with like a big ass gun.
Andrus is his name.
Andrus, yes. So he shoots
All right.
Andrus with his big ass gun, but it's not an ash arrow, Nate. So you know what happens?
He just shrugs it off.
He just shrugs it off.
Oh my God! Did he shoot him again?
Over and over and over. He just pulled that trigger till the gun went click. And that wolf just walked away like it was nothing. Also, this wolf, it's the size of like a Ford Explorer. It's a big wolf.
Jesus.
It stood over 6 feet tall.
That's the Gormans who shot him.
Yeah. They shot him with
So-
a 357.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah,
did they?
It's a big ass gun.
So did they go and buy a tank? I'm pretty sure you could do that in Utah.
Only if you're Mormon. And they check your underwear to validate it.
So he shot him over and over again, and it shrugs it off because it wasn't ash or silver. We don't know if it's a werewolf, I guess. Did they then immediately just start digging?
No, they didn't start digging. So they kind of chase it away. Like, it gets away.
It sounds like it just left on its own accord after it got bored. Did it eat any of the calves? Or the
Not yet.
steers? Or not yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
That's called foreshadowing.
So the book then, it opens with the wolf story. And then it goes back in time, like I did. Because that's how all this UFO shit goes. It's layers. There's layers. You got to unpack. So it goes back.
Onions have layers.
So they go back to give you a little bit of history about the basin and the legends and the UFO sightings that there have been around this place and the weirdness. We finally get to, I'm skipping some chapters. We're going to get to the weirdness. I'm going to tell you right now, the chapters are Wolf, Legacy, The Basin, The Weirdness, The Curse, and High Strangeness. There are more chapters, but that gets into like specifics that I'm not ready to reveal yet.
Oh, okay.
So they keep seeing the wolf, and then they keep seeing giant flying things, like a big old bat that's just way too big, and it's flying way too fast. And it's just rushing past them.
Did they shoot this too?
Did they shoot this too? No, I think the wife saw that, and I don't know if she was armed at the time.
Well, there's your first problem. You need to have at least a magnum on you at all time, it sounds like.
Yes.
If
well, the magnum didn't do
firing
anything. They used a magnum on the wolf.
Ah, shit, you're right. Well,
Yeah.
you need to have a gun, okay? It needs to have, like, if you pull the trigger and you're not being blown off of your feet by the recoil, not good enough.
Sorry, I'm just scrolling. I'm just looking through the book for like the things I want to call out, and here's a quote. It caught my eye because it started like, one Caucasian family still speaks in hushed tones about its encounter with a skinwalker, even though it happened in 1983, while driving at night along Route 163 through the massive Navajo reservation. The four members of the family felt that someone was following them. As their truck slowed to round a sharp bend, the atmosphere changed, and time itself seemed to slow down. Then something leaped out of the roadside and attacked the vehicle. It was black and hairy and eye level with the cab, one of the witnesses recalled. Whatever this thing was, it wore a man's clothes. It had on blue and white checkered shirt and long pants. Its arms were raised over its head and almost touching the top of the cab. It looked like a hairy man or a hairy animal in man's clothing. But it didn't look like an ape or anything like that. Its eyes were yellow and its mouth was open. And every man who sees something on this ranch, by the way, is a hardened veteran of combat or something. They're all like, the author really needs you to know how like unflappable these dudes are. So like,
except for when they come across this thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
The father, described as a fearless man who served 2 tours in Vietnam, turned completely white. The blood drained from his face. The hair on his neck and arms stood up straight like a cat under duress. That's an actual quote. Noticeable goosebumps erupted on his skin. Time seemed frozen.
Talking like you were there.
Yeah, so that's the new journalism, my friend. That's narrative storytelling. You know, you got to make you got to make it you got to tell a story. It's not that scientific, no. But I'm going to tell you that's why this part doesn't suck.
Ooh,
also, yeah, like that's part of what makes this book cool is because like I think this is what you would want if you were picking up a paranormal book for the first time. You want like the spooky stories. So, you know, eventually the Gormans are going to get into like a lot of high strangeness. High strangeness, by the way, is like what they describe as a hot spot activity for the paranormal. So this is we're getting your crop circles, your floating lights, and lights that seem to move intelligently, but are not aircraft. So they get some UFO activity. The mom starts getting like fucked with by what seems to be like almost a ghost or a mischievous spirit. It's like hiding her keys and putting them in the freezer and trying to make her think she's going crazy. And she's blaming the family, but it's not anyone in the family doing it. And she might have just been going crazy, I guess. But we ruled that out.
Okay. She doesn't have like
crazy.
ADHD or something, and she's like doing. Like, she's just putting stuff down, forgetting where she put them.
I would assume it didn't happen after they left the ranch. So, she's not crazy. That's the point, though. Like, if she were, that would be a valid explanation, but she's not.
Okay.
There's another valid explanation we'll
That's good.
discuss towards the end that may be a factor, and maybe some of you are thinking of. But there's another instance where he asked the kids to put up posts, these big heavy posts, like fence posts, and they went out and they did it, And they put in all the fence posts or whatever. And then they come back, and the dad comes in, and he's like all mad. He's like, when are you guys going to do that fence post? And they're like, what are you talking about? We were just out all afternoon doing this. And every single post was just stacked in a pile, almost, but not quite exactly where he had left it. So either the children took the pile of big, heavy fence posts and moved them like 5 feet to the left, or... Well, that would be ridiculous, Nate. Why would they do that?
Because they're little shitheads, apparently.
No, that's not what happened, Nate.
Okay.
It's high strangeness.
Okay.
It's high strangeness.
All right.
Okay.
You're right. I can see where I'm the idiot here.
Yeah. And then things... this is when we get into the chupas.
I'm sorry?
So, you're familiar with the chupacabra?
Yeah?
Do you know what chupa means? Do you know what chupacabra means?
No.
It means goat sucker. Chupa being Spanish. I didn't invent Spanish, Nathaniel. You can't blame me for this. You've been saying chupacabra this whole time, not knowing it just meant goat sucker. That's on you.
Oh my god. Oh Jesus. Okay. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm a little less intimidated now, but go on.
So something, this, we go back again in the book. The narrative goes back. We're going back to 1977. We're going back to the cattle mutilation epidemic, which has never been sufficiently explained, but was in fact taken quite seriously at the time. And even like the governor got involved and stuff. So they started finding all of these like lesions on these cows, and like all these like surgically removed things, and they always seem to happen in connection with UFO activity. That's a through line throughout the book. All of this shit seems to happen in connection with UFO activity, and we don't necessarily mean, the Greys or the Nordics or the Pleiadians or any of the others. That's deep. That's deep stuff. You're not ready for that yet. What if I told you that what UFO witnesses describe as light may in fact be a complex combination of ionizing and non-ionizing radiation? And many of the injuries described in some of these events are consistent with the effects of high-powered microwaves.
Okay. Is this what happened to that Russian hiking group?
I don't know if they're mentioned in this book, but yeah, maybe. What was the thing Robert Kennedy Jr. said on Joe Rogan? He said something about...
He said that it would be a great... Fauci should have allowed us to use antiparasitics on COVID, and that could have saved lives. And that's when I was like, wow, this guy is a big fucking dumb idiot who doesn't know what he's talking about. And he's just kind of coasting off of his family's legacy even harder than Ted Kennedy did.
Okay, no, that was one of his more coherent... I have no
respect for that fucking idiot. Sorry, what?
That was one of his more coherent points, and not the one I was talking about.
Oh, he has even dumber points, is what you're saying.
Hang on, let me Google Robert Kennedy Jr. Wi-Fi radiation. So he says that Wi-Fi radiation does all kinds of bad things, including cause cancer. And then Joe Rogan asks him, how does it do that? And then he says, well, now you're getting out of my area of expertise.
I'm sorry, repeat that for me again? What?
So he tells Joe Rogan that Wi-Fi radiation causes cancer. And then Joe Rogan asks him, how does Wi-Fi radiation, what is the mechanism for that? And he's like, well, now you're going beyond my knowledge.
So you're making a claim and then saying that you actually don't know how that claim is, how that works. You're making a claim and then you're saying, like, I'm actually a dumbass, so I don't know.
Yes. I'm not in the business of knowing how things work. I'm in the business of speculating how the world could be more interesting if things worked in a different fashion.
He did not speculate, though. He said with authority, and then when questioned, he said, I'm not an authority.
Do you know how much shit I say with authority on this book podcast, and then I turn around and go, but I'm just some dumbass? Now, granted, I'm talking about Bridget Jones'
You're not trying
diary.
to debate Joe Biden, and you're not on Joe Rogan. So what I'm saying is either Ben, RFK Jr. needs to just go away and fuck off and disappear into the wilderness, and
look, I'm not in the business.
Or we need to get on Joe Rogan, Ben. That's what I'm saying. We need our 15 minutes in the spotlight, okay?
See, that's how it goes. That's how this starts. Like, I'm not in the business of defending Robert Kennedy Jr. He's obviously a ridiculous fucking idiot. But that's what this shit does to you. It puts you in these conversations where you find yourself saying, maybe I should be on the Joe Rogan podcast. No one should be on the Joe Rogan podcast. It should end. It peaked. I loved it when he used to talk about Bigfoot all the time. I loved listening to Joe Rogan talk about Bigfoot and elk meat in equal proportion with the same sense of gravity. But then he started talking about vaccines, which he just... Conspiracies used to be fun. They used to be about shit that didn't matter.
and now it's about the election was rigged.
Okay, so Tom Gorman buys a bunch of dogs, right?
We're back to these guys again.
Yeah, he buys a bunch of dogs.
Okay, so have we ionized and non-ionized the cattle? Is that what's happening here?
Cattle are getting mutilated. There's
a big old bat. It's Dracula flying around. Okay.
Don't throw shit out there so casually, Nathaniel. You're making it happen. You're manifesting tulpas right now, okay?
Well, that's... What? What?
You're not qualified to talk on this. So you're just going to have to just let me
Ben,
guide you.
I'm not qualified to talk on this, but I will speak as an authority anyway. It's the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. way.
Don't you bust out the RFK defense on me. Okay, so he buys a bunch of dogs, right? Because his cattle are getting fucked with.
Okay.
And the dogs seem to scare away the aliens.
Did he ever buy any cameras to see what was fucking with it?
No.
Because, Ben, if you see a gigantic bat, maybe you don't need dogs. Maybe you need something else. I don't think bats are gonna
Look,
be
I'm skipping around.
by a dog.
So
okay.
I'm skipping around, but we're gonna get to the cameras. Don't worry.
Okay, perfect. All right. So he gets a bunch of dogs. Where are we doing with these dogs, Ben?
So the dogs scare away the aliens, right? So that's the function of the dogs.
I'm sorry. Hold on. What is that real?
Yeah, they don't like barking dogs. It seems to help, but it also seems to aggravate them. They don't like the dogs. So you're just part of the scientific community that lacks an open mind and just will not fund my research, okay? My research into the effect of dogs on the Bigfoot.
Oh no, man! I'll you know what? I'll chip in. I'll give you $150 to go get yourself a dog and some dog food, and then just walk into an alien ranch or whatever, and let's see what happens, man.
Okay, so the dogs doesn't go well for them.
What? But they scared away the aliens, Ben.
Well, they chase the alien. So okay.
Well, I mean, you can always buy more dogs, Ben. I mean, it's not like there's a finite supply.
He spots an object in the distance one night, right? And the dogs start going nuts about this object. It's like flashing a blue light. And he sees it again, and he figures it's only about 300 yards away. And it's moving really fast along the bottom of his pasture. And it gets a little closer, and he can see it perfectly now. It's a big round orb. It's bigger than a baseball. That's how it's described. It's bigger than a baseball. I don't know how much bigger, but I assume probably about baseball sized, since they used it's like softball. It's a softball. And it's doing maneuvers. Intelligent maneuvers, very sophisticated. Those exact words. And
okay.
he's seen this before. You know, at this point I skipped over so much, but like he knows this fucking orb. This orb.
Okay.
This is his white whale. Okay, he's gonna get this
son
orb
of a
this time.
bitch. Does he have something stronger than a magnum at this point?
He's got 3 dogs.
Okay. Do they have guns?
No, but the dogs, the aliens don't like dogs. So.
Okay, well.
And I'm gonna
did that big old wolf ever come back?
Yeah, a bunch of times.
Did the dogs scare that off?
Kind of. So they stop seeing the wolf after a while, and then she reports it to the cops. She's like, you guys got to do something about these wolves. And they're like, ma'am, there are no wolves in Utah. The population collapsed in the 1920s. What are you talking about? And she's like, oh, they never even existed. So the dogs
Are you
in
saying
the
it's
baseball.
like a creepypasta?
The dogs in the baseball. No, I'm saying it's like it's very serious science.
All right,
You're
now,
close-minded.
when he opened fire
You're
on this
close-minded.
thing, Ben, when he opened fire, did he see any wounds? Are we sure he actually hit it?
It takes it point blank. He's just blasting. Danny DeVito style.
Blank?
He's just blasting and blasting and blasting. Tom didn't you hear my intro? He has the eyes of a trained marksman.
Okay, but is he a
Every
trained
shot-
marksman?
Probably. Why would they say that if he wasn't? Why would they say that if he wasn't?
Because he's able to identify shit 300 yards away in the darkness. But
Nathaniel,
okay, so he's
We got a
going
lot of
after
books
this
to get
orb.
through. We got 2/3 of the book to
Going
get
after
through.
this orb. This orb. What is he doing
He's going
now,
after
Ben?
I'm going to read directly from the book. Without really
Please
thinking, he set his dogs loose. Usually, he kept them beside him when these things were flying around. But tonight, he lost his patience. His 3 dogs took off at top speed in the direction of the blue orb. It didn't seem to react to their presence until the animals got much nearer. Then it dipped down and descended until it was only a few feet off the ground. The 3 dogs began leaping at the object. They were snarling, with their jaws snapping. And each time the animals leaped at the orb, it skillfully moved out of the way, the jaws missing sometimes by only inches. And this goes on, and this goes on, and then eventually he loses track of the dogs, and he can't find them.
Okay.
And then they run into the trees, and
Okay.
he hears the unmistakable, fear-filled yelps of dogs in mortal agony. Then, an eerie silence.
I kind of feel like this is like a creepypasta, what you're describing to me.
So and then he goes, he can't find him. It's too dark. He doesn't know what happened. So
Okay.
he has to wait until morning to conduct the search properly.
But I thought that the dogs were like rock, paper, scissors, alien is rock, dog is paper, right?
Yeah, well,
guess
you know
he's
what?
scissors.
You know what, Nathaniel? This time, the aliens aren't taking prisoners. Every single one of those dogs is a smoking pile of flesh on the fucking ground.
Okay. Like he
He
saw
can-
their corpses?
Yeah. His worst fears were realized when he went down the following morning to inspect the copse of trees. A smell of burned flesh greeted his nostrils as he dipped his head beneath the low branches. 10 yards inside was a small clearing. Tears filled Tom's eyes. 3 large circles of brown, dried-out grass were in the middle of the clearing. At the center of each circle of shriveled vegetation was a blackish, greasy mess. The stink of his incinerated dogs was awful.
And did he go get more dogs?
No, this is when he sells the ranch.
Oh.
He's done.
Does this
now.
only happen at night?
It's worse at night. Like stuff going missing happens during the day. They get a little bit of poltergeist activity, like doors slamming, things turning on, like footsteps, whatever. There's one time a guy comes up.
But why aren't we digging everywhere, Ben? They said don't dig. Weird shit is happening. Let's start digging.
Well, because then we'll find the natural gas line that's leaking and causing all these hallucinations. I'm making so many people so mad if they're listening. A lot of people take this really seriously. So this is when our heroes
Hey, you
enter the
do
picture.
you. Yeah.
This is when our heroes enter the picture. Okay? This is
Our
when
heroes. Perfect.
the brave men and women of the National Institute for Discovery Science, a.k.a. NIDS, by the branch of National Serious Science.
All right. Yeah. Oh.
They advertised in the prestigious journal Science.
Okay. Yeah.
So
All right.
this is-
Let's do it.
Las Vegas real estate tycoon Bob Bigelow decided to form NIDS to investigate
Bigelow.
the paranormal. So he bought the ranch in Utah. The Gormans need to sell. They got to get out
Bob
of there.
Bigelow
They're-
is friends with Harry Reid, the Democrat who led the Senate caucus. What?
It goes deep.
Wait, that
Look how
means
deep it goes.
He's in with them then.
Yeah.
Why are
Like-
we not going after Bigelow? I feel like he has more answers than he's letting on.
Oh, that's good theory. What if Bigelow's in on it? What if it's just another psyop?
Yeah, let's get him.
Let's get him. Get real estate tycoon. All right, Nid's buys the ranch, right?
Okay,
And they're gonna do serious science. Like
they're gonna start
basically
digging everywhere and finding all that stuff.
So the Gormans had lost a bunch of cattle. They had a herd of 80 animals, and they had lost 14, which
That's
is
not
a
that much.
it's a ton of money. Each of those animals
Yeah.
is worth thousands of dollars.
Yeah, but you can always make more. I'm sorry, it says here invisible objects emitting destructive magnetic fields.
Probably. Yeah, why not?
Okay.
Okay. So, but Tom doesn't leave the ranch, right? He sells it to Nids. But Nids needs somebody like their day to day, right? Because they don't want to like interrupt the chi, the feng shui of whatever's going on here. The weird shit happens when it's a ranch. It's going to stay a ranch. So they're hiring Tom Gorman on to be the Nids ranch manager. That's his official title.
So
And-
he sold the ranch, but then he just gets to hang out there.
Yeah, he
for his
stays on as
job.
like a hired hand. Yeah.
But I thought, like, the whole point was, like, we need to GTFO.
Well, he gets his family out of there, but he wants to know. He wants to get that baseball that liquefied his dogs.
And he's gonna bring in a whole team of dogs.
Yeah. So they get some more cows. That's the first order of business. They gotta get some cows.
Obviously.
And they get some dogs and stuff. And, they find, like, very first day they're there, find some weird shit. They find some dead cows. And these
well,
cows...
there you go.
Yeah. These cows, they didn't look like they died by natural means. And they're mutilated in a way that
I'm gonna say most cows don't die by natural means anymore.
well,
Most
so-
of them are slaughtered for consumption.
Yeah, okay, but these weren't. Oh my god! These
Maybe he
had-
did a bad job of slaughtering them, Ben.
They had their butts eaten off, Nate.
That's the rump, Ben. Rump roast.
Each animal's bones were plainly visible, but their rear ends were missing.
Okay. So hear me out, Ben. Hear me out, okay? They did not eat enough fiber.
Well, so here's the thing. The fact that they're dead isn't the only... It's not the only strangeness. It's
Okay.
the condition of decomposition that they're in. They have a veterinarian with them. The veterinarian
Of course they
says
do.
that with the usual temperatures and humidity of northeastern Utah, it should have taken...
Do veterinarians actually know this? This sounds like forensics.
This is a forensic veterinarian.
Okay. Is there a such thing as a forensic veterinarian?
Yeah. And where's their TV show? Where's NCIS Barnyard? Okay, that's what I want to know. You know why? You know why that TV show doesn't exist? Because the government pulled the goddamn script on it. They saw that was going to get greenlit, and they're like, no, the public can't know. So he's like, so it should have decayed to bones in a few weeks, right? But this has been around for like a month. Probably should have cleaned it up, but they didn't. And so that's weird. Mark that on your notepad. That's weird.
So you're saying that it didn't decompose?
No, it was it was decomposed. Well, okay, it's decomposing a little, but like it's decomposed faster.
Oh, okay.
One
Because
would
he's
expect.
a forensic veterinarian.
He's a forensic veterinarian. Yes, one would expect it would decompose faster. Okay, so the NIDS team. They start interviewing locals. They start getting stories about, weird flying objects. They do point out that there's a lot of like poverty issues in the area, and people are initially mistrustful of them, but eventually when they figure out that you'll buy them lunch, they'll tell you whatever you want to hear. I mean, about the UFOs. And
that guy in Innsmouth. You just give him some booze, he'll tell you all about that weird reef.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. This bears a striking resemblance to a lot of sci-fi horror fiction, and that's why I like it, but I see no other connection. I don't even know why I started that sentence. So
that's why I like it. ... The end.
The end. They see a few things, the scientists. They bring in like a bunch of instruments to measure like radioactivity. They're looking for like natural gas leaks. They're looking for plants on the grounds that could be hallucinogenic. They're looking for all the rational explanations.
Are they
for
digging for that natural gas line yet?
They have eliminated hallucinations scientifically.
I want to see the evidence here. What did they do?
Well, I'm going to give you a spoiler, Nate.
Uh-oh.
I kind of trust their scientific methodology.
Okay.
Because they don't find anything. They don't come back with proof of anything.
All right.
This book that you pointed out reads like fiction, because how did you know he snarled like a growling bear if you weren't there? Yeah. This is all they got. This book is the result of, I think, like literally 9 years of Bob Bigelow throwing money at this ranch. So
he's got more money. I think he gave up, man. We finally were looking for. Okay, so one of two things happened. All right, either Bob Bigelow is in on it because he's friends with Harry Reid, who's deep in the government, or Bob Bigelow's a quitter. All right, they're complaining about how no one will throw money at this. And here he is. He just stopped throwing money at it. He's got more money. His net worth is like $500 million. He could throw more money at this if he wanted, but he quit, Ben. He's a coward, Ben.
I agree with you. That's a point I'm going to make at the end of this. So they do have some weird experiences. They get some weird shit with the cows at first with their forensic veterinarian. They get kinds of like lights and stuff.
It's never not going to be funny.
One guy sees, like one scientist is up there with another scientist, and they're like trying to like the meditation experiment again. And this guy sees like a wormhole open up and something crawl out of it. And then the wormhole closes and the dude's like shook. He didn't get any pictures.
Oh, okay. That was my question.
Yeah, no, he was too stunned.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell him what I used to tell people all the time on Instant Messenger. Pixar didn't happen, bro.
They have a few weird experiences, but nothing that lasts more than a few seconds. And they can't catch anything on any of their cameras or their sensors or whatever. But it's weird. It's weird being there. And when they're gone, the Gormans see shit. One thing that happens is some cows wind up in like a trailer, and like, why would they go into that? Cows don't just go into trailers. They were scared. They're packed into this trailer like sardines. They were hiding from
scared.
Something.
Okay.
Scared.
Did the
Something attacked those
cows,
cows.
how did they get into the trailer?
They must have like very carefully walked in, like as if something were guiding them. Now, granted, I'm going to tell you right now, because you're probably wondering this. Now, granted, this happened while only the Gormans were there. And, you know, they let the cows out of the trailer, so no one saw the cows in the trailer. But it happened while the Gormans... I have no reason to doubt him. He has eyes like a marksman.
Have the Gormans... have they tried to perhaps get on to the Joe Rogan show and honestly, they need a claim to fame?
Honestly, I don't think so. So there have been accusations by charlatans, of course.
Yes.
That the Gormans...
I can see how I'm the asshole here.
We're just trying to tell stories to sell a piece of property that for one reason or another was not making money. And
that was kind of my thought, that like, hey, I could sell this ranch to a really rich guy whose last name is Bigelow. And
it really does sound like a Fairly Odd Parents character, like Bob Bigelow. Owner of the Bigsdale Bigelow.
Yeah, there you go. yeah, I'm kind of thinking like, okay, there's a hotel in the middle of nowhere, Kansas. Why would you go there? But, there are ghosts.
Oh, it's like how everything on Ghost Adventures is like, until you remember Ghost Adventures is on the Travel Channel, you're like, what would these hotels have to gain by inviting Zach Baggins to come on and tell everybody they're haunted? And they're offering a new special tour for $9.99.
Yeah, it's like, this is... You have a hotel in the middle of nowhere that no one wants to go to, but now that it's haunted, you can. That's your gimmick. That's how you sell it, right?
So I'm going to borrow something from the last podcast on the left, though, because they have a great series on Skinwalker Ranch. If you're really interested in Skinwalker Ranch itself and not a book in particular, check out that.
It depends on how seriously do they take it, because I think one of the people on the last podcast on the left really believes in all this crazy shit.
I wonder. I think he wants to believe, but they don't take it. They take it a bit seriously, but they do say something that is kind of true. People who see UFOs, it mostly just ruins their lives. They don't usually parlay it into financial success. So the Gormans, I don't know where they are today, but they have not been on the Joe Rogan podcast. They don't seem to have done a bunch of interviews, or they didn't write this book. I don't think they're getting any money from this.
But they did manage to flip a ranch that maybe they didn't want, or maybe they couldn't sustain.
They did, but does that mean they didn't see some weird shit? Like, the Amityville Horror is another case of this.
Hicks,
where it's like,
or it didn't happen, bro.
I would want to see the burnt dog carcasses myself.
Yeah.
I think you should send that to
Did he show that to anybody?
I don't think so.
Yeah, Pixar, it didn't fucking happen, bro.
He showed him where it happened.
Whoop-de-fucking-do. I want to see some corpses, buddy. You show me some blackened dog corpses, and then we'll talk.
Okay, so you're just a skeptic.
Yeah. Show me some physical evidence. Any physical evidence.
I don't have any, because...
Yeah, I know you don't.
Because the baseball's too smart, Nathaniel. It won't come out when it knows I have cameras.
Well, then always use cameras and your ranch will be safe.
Do you know why Bigfoot is always blurry in pictures?
They'll find someone else to harass.
Do you know why Bigfoot is always blurry in pictures? Because when you're about to take the picture, he phases in and out of reality. He goes into the fifth dimension.
Oh, God. All right. Oh, you know why no one's found the Loch Ness Monster, Ben? And by the way, Bigfoot has been spotted multiple times on Jack Wing's beef jerky commercials, Ben.
Yeah. To my point.
Blurry then.
Because he chose not to be, because he endorses Jack Link's beef jerky. He can control it. Just like how you can blink. He can blink in and out of reality.
Yeah, you got me.
Thank you. So let's get to part 3, explaining why we didn't waste our money.
All right.
It's actually called Aftermath and Hypothesis.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Let's do this.
First, I'm going to read you the chapter titles because these are cool.
Okay.
24, the media. 25, hypotheses. 26, the military. 27, the Native American connection. 28, other dimensions. 29, outer worlds. 30, inner worlds. 30,
Just to cover all your bases, just in case.
31, revolutionary science. So basically they get nothing, right? They get nothing. There's some weird shit that goes on, but they don't find much. And then, bizarrely, people find out that NIDS is doing this, that they have all these scientists there and that they're actually studying this, and they want the data. But NIDS isn't doing press reports or giving data. They want a media blackout because they want to, collect as much data as they can and present their findings in a scientific way, if there are any findings. I do actually believe NIDS was trying to do this right, which again, they didn't find anything.
But they
so
gave
they didn't
up.
lie.
Then. They have a bunch of hypotheses that they're just never going to test, despite the fact that they've got money.
We're going to get to that. So people find out that they're there. And all these UFO enthusiasts, all these paranormal researchers, they're all just like, well, why won't they tell us? What if they're in on it? What if they're working for the government? What if NIDS is a psyop? And all the NIDS scientists are like, whoa. Yeah, no, we can't be in on it. Like, we're like you. No, they're in on it. They're them. We're us. Conspiracy theorists have to stick together. We can't just eat each other like this. Where does it end? If the conspiracy theorists start suspecting the conspiracy theorists, then this country is over. So anyway, that doesn't work. And
okay, all right.
Here's what Tom Gorman thinks. Tom Gorman thinks you came in too hot. You came in here with all your fancy cameras and your gadgets. It took me a year to work up to dogs. The aliens are afraid of cameras.
Well, they were afraid of dogs until they started vaporizing them.
Well, eventually they'd vaporize the camera, but then you'd have some proof. There was one case where the aliens unplugged the cameras. There was one case where a camera lost power and it like the plug had just been gently removed or something, and they couldn't explain that. You can't explain that.
Yeah, no. You can't explain that. But also, why didn't you have batteries in your fucking cameras, you dillweed? What the fuck are you doing?
Dillweed, what the fuck?
I was gonna say dildo, but then I decided to pull back for the kids who are listening to this podcast, Ben. And now you forced me to explain it, so fine. Put some battery backups in your camera when you're doing scientific research, you dumbass. Is that better, Ben?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
We're about the truth here on Words About Books, okay? I don't want your lies. I don't want your soothing lies. I want the truth. So let's talk about the possibilities, the hypotheses. First one, let's just get this out of the way. The book addresses it. What if it's a hoax? Did the Gormans make it up? Could they have hoaxed the whole thing?
Did they definitively say no on that one?
Skeptics might argue that the family made it all up, perhaps because they wanted to extricate themselves from a financial disaster. See, I'm heading you off right at the bat, Nathaniel.
Okay, I guess that since you brought it up, it can't be the case.
Here's a couple of things. Here's a couple of reasons why they don't think the Gormans were lying. First, they admit it's subjective, but they know the Gormans. They trust the Gormans. They just don't get that vibe from them. They pass the vibe check. Okay, that's.
The vibe check. All right. Well, that's enough scientific evidence for me.
They've got a few other reasons.
Nope, that's all I need.
The ranch had a reputation before this. Now, looking outside of the book, I think this is debatable. Like the Uinta Basin has a bit of a reputation for UFO activity and stuff like that outside of just the Gorman story. The ranch in specific, as far as I know, the previous owners, now we say they have this weird clause and we say they have the locks on the door. Maybe they did, but they personally lived there for decades and they didn't really report anything. But I guess they say around town it had a reputation. Now the problem is they also talk a lot about how like impoverished some of these areas are where they're talking to people, and I don't think they gave anybody money. I think they tried to stay above board on that. But like for me personally, I genuinely don't care what anyone in the community thinks about what happens on the ranch. Like, let me just tell you now that I think it's a groovy story. I love it. I will happily read your short horror fiction or non-fiction, however you choose to label it. Like, if you want to go around and chronicle the folklore of an area, I love that. I love a ghost story. I love a UFO story. That's why I'm here. But if you're asking me to believe something, I need more than a good story. And I do think, just by virtue of the source of the funding being Bob Bigelow, who obviously would like this to be true. Now, again, to his credit, he doesn't want it to be true enough to lie. He did not fake evidence. He did not say he had evidence where he had none.
Okay.
Yeah, basically, they can't rule out the hoax. But they passed the vibe check, Nate. I mean, they passed the vibe check. Why are you doing this?
No.
Why would you doubt
them? I can see why I'm wrong here. Now, I didn't personally talk to the Gormans, though, so I would like to do that so that I could personally pass the vibe
I would like to
test.
personally vibe check them and just see, are you solid? Do you have the rugged eyes, chin, nose, and fucking pouty lips of a trained marksman? Let's take a second possibility here.
Okay.
Delusions. What if everybody really did see what they said? Nobody's lying. But they were delusional for whatever reason. They had stress-induced fugue states or drugs or there's another word. There's a word here. I don't know what it is. So anyway, what if they were seeing shit?
Okay.
Well, NIDS carefully investigated the wide variety of eyewitnesses to the incidents at the ranch. They interviewed neighbors and locals who also experienced similar events. And in addition to psychological profiling, multiple discussions took place.
All right.
Multiple discussions on the need to monitor stress hormones and other blood chemistry profiles of all researchers on the ranch.
This makes me kind of think of the fold bed. We're going to do all this stuff, and then we're just going to ignore the fact that, your entire back has changed.
Okay, well, so here's the... but we didn't do that.
Okay, all right.
We talked about it. We had very serious discussions, but we wound up thinking, if I have to submit to a weekly blood test, I'm not going to show up to this thing that is not my main job as a fancy scientist. Also, by the way, most of the scientists, do not have their real names on this project. I think it's just scientists who perhaps are like me and God, it would be cool if it was real, but I don't want people to know I like this stuff. But I'm telling you on a podcast, so it's fine. Nobody listened this far, so it's fine.
Yeah, they've all turned it off by now.
They ruled it highly unlikely that fugue states, paraphrenic delusion, or groupthink were involved in all of the occurrences. Although isolated episodes are difficult to refute on these grounds, particularly those in which only a single individual visually perceived and reported the event. So this is a problematic thing in all paranormal/UFO shit, where somebody says a lot of bullshit. I'm sorry, a lot of eyewitness accounts.
Yeah, you almost gave it all away, Ben.
I almost broke kayfabe there. But then they turn around and say, but if only 1% is true, that's still mind-blowing. If I told you...
what if the 1% that's true is that he had dogs?
Well, then what the fuck did he do to those dogs? So, like, if even 1%, like, if I say to you that I was abducted by aliens, they did horrible, invasive things to me, and I was dropped by gravity beam back at my house, if only 1% of that is true, that's incredible. The 1% that's true is that I was at my house.
The 1% that's true. I was at my house last night. All right. Well,
That's the thing. I hate that argument.
you need it. I feel like at least like 50 to 70% of your story needs to be true for that to be mind blowing.
Yeah, the whole, like, it's a thing I hear a lot with Bob Lazar, who personally I believe is 100% a con man. Here's another hypothesis: nature. So, could it be a natural phenomenon? Could nature be responsible? Could the presence of either a seismic, an electromagnetic, or an environmental variable have induced consistent hallucinations in the human brain and altered the perceptions of both the Gormans and NIDS investigators? NIDS spent, quote unquote, a lot of time investigating and testing this hypothesis. They had some theories that it could be a tectonic strain, as proposed by Michael Persinger, John Durr et al. The TST theory holds that electromagnetic energy released from seismic stress sometimes manifests as light, so-called earthquake lights, and may also interact with the human brain. Perhaps as a VLF, very low frequency for the layman.
Thank you.
Or ULF. Or ULF. Ultra low frequency. See, still lower. The frequency's getting lower.
Okay.
So, what if that could cause...
Is there a RBF, rock bottom frequency, huh?
No, you're just making shit up now.
Can't dig low... Oh, okay. All right.
But that could, earthquake lights, I guess, have been seen. People have seen strange lights where earthquakes or seismic activity is happening. This is a thing that is reported, but nobody really knows what the fuck's causing it. They tried to figure out, seismic activity and stuff in the area. It's not earthquake lights. You'll be relieved to know.
Okay. He proved that.
We ruled out earthquake lights.
He used the seismometer, and it never got up to a 10 on the thing to cause the rumbling, so...
God, can you imagine if Rathma the Damned is responsible for the whole thing? We'll talk about that. He might be.
Oh my God.
It's Rathos.
It turns out the reason that you're not supposed to be digging on the property is because... the original ranch owners stole a mummy from Egypt, and they buried it on the property, and now it's pissed.
That's a good story. Like, I might have to steal that. I like that. They looked into, is there magic mushrooms on the property? Yes, but we brought those. No, they didn't.
All right.
No. There was no hallucinogens. Nobody was doing drugs. They investigated anything that may have been wind-borne, any, floating magic mushroom type stuff. I don't know what floating hallucinogens there might be, but that sounds, frankly, quite awesome.
It's happening again with the fucking trees are releasing stuff. We gotta outrun the wind.
Finally. Well, it doesn't move that fast, so, unless you're in a hurricane. The wind can move pretty fast, actually. No, that'd be difficult.
Yeah, the wind can move very fast. What are you talking about, Ben?
I don't know why I was thinking like a gentle breeze. Like, I could outrun that. But no, I probably couldn't. See, this is why I don't do serious science like NIDS. So
NIDS just makes me think of SIDS, Ben. Like,
it does. It's not good. It's not a good thing.
They have a branding problem.
Very few good things end in IDS. Well, you'll be relieved to know NIDS no longer exists.
Oh, shit. Because
finally,
Bigelow went over to the other side. Harry Reid lured him over with that Senate Reid. Democrat money.
That turtley bastard. Anyway, we got to debunk nature. So
Okay.
they mapped magnetic field anomalies using.
But I thought they were
published-
invisible things that were releasing the magnetic fields, Ben.
They mapped magnetic field anomalies using published aeromagnetic surveys, as well as taking dozens of field measurements of magnetic field flux on the ranch. Not to mention, wait a minute.
God.
Wait a minute. Not to mention gravitational and other incongruities. What?
Yeah. What, Ben? Can you please explain that to me?
I'm sure they dropped an apple and it fell at the appropriate rate.
This kind of sounds like
No, it's
Hail
not.
Mary, Ben.
Look, I know gravitational waves can be measured. I just thought you couldn't do it in a trailer on a ranch. But maybe Nids knows more than me. Okay, so let's get into the juicy shit. Now we've gotten rid of all the garbage hypotheses. We know it's not a hoax, probably. And we know it's not nature,
Perfect.
probably. So,
Okay.
there is an advanced terrestrial civilization, right?
That's
So-
where I would jump to. There's on the History Channel, it's like no other creature on Earth makes cities, therefore aliens. And I'm like,
Oh, boy.
uh-huh.
I'm just going to read you this paragraph because
Please
this is
do.
something. This hypothesis would have us believe that sometime in human history, maybe during the Bible era, during the Middle Ages, or even just prior to the Nazi era, an isolated... Shut up! An isolated group of... We're just moving past that Nazi era thing. An isolated group of humans gained access to advanced technology and have controlled, world human affairs for the... We're skipping this theory.
Yeah.
This isn't...
Yeah, this is,
We're skipping this
oh
theory.
boy, I think maybe there's some problems here that you're...
We're skipping this theory. Okay, extraterrestrials.
Oh boy.
What if it was
wow.
What if it was aliens?
Yeah, what if it were aliens that controlled the world banks and
Shush! No, they didn't. No, they just. He's not saying that. He's just saying maybe there's an Illuminati that have been using their special technology to perhaps rule the global agenda, and we're skipping it.
This is people, not
This
aliens.
is people. That's the terrestrial one. He's proposing that there is
The
some
inner
group of
planets
humans.
theory.
No, he's proposing that there is some group of humans that has access to technology that they have not shared.
Oh no.
Yeah, I know.
and
That's why we're
perhaps-
skipping it. Please
and
let me skip it. I don't want to
right,
speculate
move
further
on.
about what those people might look like. Okay, moving on.
Okay.
Extraterrestrials. Extraterrestrials. ETs, the little green men.
Okay.
The best known, but not necessarily the most credible model for multiple anomalous phenomena is that extraterrestrials from a different planet have been, and still are, visiting planet Earth for some unknown reason. They're also visiting the ranch and the surrounding Uinta Basin for decades. They've been doing it for decades. Now, admittedly, can't really think of what they're trying to accomplish. That's, and it's not really a hypothesis you could test, especially when you can't gather any data.
Or pictures, or yeah.
And by the way, they recognize that UFOs and ETs are not synonymous. You can have an unidentified object that is not necessarily an extraterrestrial alien.
Okay.
Yeah, fucking
that's good.
naysayers. Okay.
Yeah, okay. I can see how we're the idiots here.
But, that's a possibility. Now, we're into some golden stuff here now. Ancient astronauts. The ancient astronaut theory.
Okay.
Dude, why are you laughing? Why aren't you? You're so close-minded.
Yeah, I
You're
can see how I'm the problem here. Yeah.
You're so close-minded. This is why we can't research things. This is why we don't
it's
have-
definitely not because your wealthy benefactor fucking pulled out.
No, it's because you're closed-minded. He pulled out because you're closed-minded. Okay,
no.
so
I can see how I'm the problem here.
This is a variation on the extraterrestrial hypothesis. This holds that alien interest in Earth is not new, but in fact, colonizing ETs or gods have been on Earth, the moon, Mars, or somewhere close by for thousands. All of your gods are aliens. All of your gods are aliens. Have you not watched
over something here, Ben?
Have you not watched Ancient Aliens on the History Channel?
Only
Literally
a few times.
All the gods are aliens.
What is this about
the
gods,
Ark of the
Ben?
Covenant
What?
is radioactive. The Ark of the Covenant's just uranium. Zeus was an alien. Thor was an alien. They did an episode on Thor. George Washington crossed the Delaware with the help of aliens. That was literally an episode.
What the fuck? Because it's impossible to cross the Delaware otherwise?
Yes. So this, yada
Have
yada.
they tried?
Yada yada. This hypothesis holds that the ETs may be responsible for the Bible, for the ancient legends of gods in multiple cultures, for building some of the ancient monuments,
And this has
etc.
something to do with this fucking ranch?
Yes, this scenario may be consistent with the concept of angels and demons from the Bible and other religious beliefs. Whether these beings are angelic or demonic ultimately depends on belief. Quite aside from such considerations, there is no physical data to support this either.
Nice. All right. I'm glad that they pointed that out. Ben, also,
Yeah.
where the fuck do skinwalkers come into any of this? Why is it called the Skinwalker Ranch?
Where does the Skinwalker come in? Because that's a cool story that happened near here.
Okay, what happened near here? There's a
Skinwalker stuff. Skinwalker stuff. It's Skinwalker stuff. Like, there were Skinwalker legends around here, and that's probably the same thing that's going on at this ranch. Because they're both weird things I can't explain. They're probably the same thing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well.
Okay. Are you editing this episode?
Yeah.
Okay, be respectful.
Oh,
I don't want to see any
God.
stupid music played under this bullshit.
I was just going to run music the whole episode, Ben.
What if it's the military, though?
Yeah, what if it's the military? What if the military had, like, they paid special attention to some random asshole's ranch, and they were like, hey, we're gonna do some military training exercises to see if we could just, like, fuck with the guy and
Okay,
really,
so
really annoy him.
Oh, shit. Hang on. What the fuck was it called? Oh, God. Okay. Are you... I literally just Googled that time the CIA gave people LSD. Are you familiar with MK Ultra?
Yes.
Okay. So, MK Ultra is a big thing in the UFO space because they... And to their credit, that is a batshit fucking crazy thing that actually happened. So what if it's something like that? What if, A, the military is like testing some ultra fancy tech, and that's what they saw. B, what if the military is just like fucking gassing them? What if it's gassing them with super LSD?
Why
see what
did
happens.
they just
Just
gas like 2 people? You need a bigger sample size.
Why did they give Ted Kaczynski a bunch of LSD and then let him become the Unabomber? I don't know.
I'm sorry?
That
What?
actually happened. That's a real thing.
He became the Unabomber because of the LSD?
He went pretty nuts around the time they gave him the LSD, yeah. I don't know
Huh.
if he became the Unabomber because, yeah, it didn't help. It didn't help.
Okay.
I'll tell you that.
Alright. Did either of the Gormans become the Unabomber?
Not yet,
Right,
maybe.
those.
I don't know. Hard to say.
We can't ever prove one way or the other, so...
You know, sometimes I listen
Yes.
to the last podcast and I'm like, oh, you guys get caught in some bad, saying some bad stuff. And I'm just like, you can't really talk about this shit without it getting really fucking weird. Okay, so do you know what remote viewing is? The men who stare at goats stuff.
Yeah, I think so. I remember the guy ran through a wall at the end while Boston played in the background. It was pretty cool.
Okay, so remote viewing is the idea that basically you can psychically see something far away. You can actually
Okay.
view a place far away.
I call that scrying, Ben.
It's potato.
Mine's better, though.
In an effort to make sure that they really covered their bases, NIDS personnel did invite top remote viewers to the ranch. Now they acknowledge that
right.
remote viewing is a controversial but intriguing mental technique that has been
Why haven't we
investigated.
ever researched that, Ben?
We have. That's what The Men Who Stare at Goats was about. It's a true story.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
not the
why?
running through the wall to Boston part.
Why haven't we found a way to use that, Ben?
Well, maybe we did. Maybe they didn't tell
Why
you.
are we using cluster bombs in Ukraine if we could just use remote viewing to get them, Ben?
Well, you can't like do anything to them. You can just see them. Like somebody is probably
why do
looking
we
at like
need
Putin's
advanced
asshole
computers
right
and
now.
Why didn't we use remote viewing to find the Titan submersible, Ben?
Because it fucking imploded. I thought you were going to say Bin Laden, and I was going to have a real hard time telling you why. But yeah, that was easy.
Oh yeah, why didn't we do that, Ben?
I don't know, man. Maybe we did. Maybe that's how we finally got him.
There was a skit on Mad TV. No one remembers Mad TV because but there was like a psychic who and basically a person was like, so why didn't you tell anyone about 9/11? And they had no answer for that.
The remote viewers, they actually found some spooky stuff with the remote viewers. The remote viewers were able to see things on the ranch, now.
Did they find that orb or that wolf?
No, they were able to, not having been to the ranch, describe things on the ranch. Now, this is me playing like devil's advocate. Like maybe they've just seen a ranch and know what sort of things would be on a ranch.
But did they find the orb or the wolf without being on the ranch?
They sensed it. They sensed something.
Okay, did they say what that something was, or are we just cold reading here?
No, well, yeah, okay.
Someone in the audience. There was I'm feeling an E.
Now you're telling me that you think that a con man could just go and be invited to a room with a bunch of people who believe in UFOs and just start telling them what they want to hear.
Yes.
Well, that's you're so close-minded. You just won't believe.
Yeah,
anything.
no, I can see how I'm the asshole because I'm not getting money from these people, and it sounds really easy. I just have to step up my con man game.
Okay, let me read you the next chapter, the Native American connection.
God. Oh,
yeah, I know,
Jesus.
I know, but they wrote it. Could the Skinwalker curse somehow explain the various unusual phenomenon that have been reported at the Gorman
I don't
Ranch
know
over
what the
many
Skinwalker
decades?
curse is at this point. Is
Well,
it
you
just
would if you
becoming a
would if you read the
Skinwalker?
book. You would if you read the book.
Is that what they think that wolf is? And also, why did that wolf also become a ghost and an alien? Why are we mixing up all of our spooky story? Like, we put them all in a vat. And we just.
It's a hot spot where realities converge. We'll get to it. Okay. So
Realities converge.
We're hesitant. Shut up. We're hesitant to endorse the existence. Okay. They're hesitant, Nathaniel. They're hesitating. Okay, imagine them just sitting there typing it. They're at their keyboard and they're just hesitating to type every letter because they're just, it's such a awkward. We're hesitant to endorse the existence of either skinwalkers or curses in any objective or literal sense. But there is no question that the story, as told by the Utes, for a century or more, hangs over the ranch like a dark, ominous cloud.
We're skeptical.
Umbrella.
We don't want to objectively say if there's a curse, but there's a curse?
Well, mainstream science is unlikely to ever give credence to any theory based on tribal lore or black magic. The I'm not going to read the rest of this. Okay.
That's probably for the best. I could sense you were going down to a really bad place.
It's not super bad. Like, I don't think you'd be offended necessarily, but it's not great. It's not. I can't imagine a tribal elder being super impressed with what I just read. I'll put it that way. Okay, other dimensions. You know, what if we take this hypothesis of all this black magic and all this occult shit, and we dress it up in the garb of modern physics? The questions could become, could the phenomena at Utah Ranch have been the result of interdimensional beings or time travelers accessing our space-time continuum, or physical beings jumping across vast interstellar distances via wormholes and or stargates?
Okay, but how does that describe the wolf? Fiction. It definitely does.
But what if it's not?
What if it is?
According to some variations of the interdimensional hypothesis, the creatures or beings that access our physical reality need not necessarily be physical, but may be capable of influencing our physical reality and or may be capable of mind control.
I'm sorry, what?
It was a little bit of a leap, wasn't it?
Yeah, I feel like we went real far there.
That was a little bit of a leap. I think we've got enough of that. Oh, then they mentioned John Keel. John Keel is one of the just absolutely fucking unreadable ones. Yeah, he's real boring. Okay. Michio Kaku, he's here. Talking about him. Outer Worlds. So this is where they propose that Michio Kaku did this thought experiment. So let's say that there's a 10-lane superhighway being built next to an anthill. Would the ants ever know what a 10-lane superhighway is? What it's used for? How to communicate with the workers? The answer is no. So if there was like a sufficiently advanced civilization next to us, possibly like using the Milky Way as a 10-speed highway, would we even be capable of perceiving it? The answer is probably not. Think about that. What if there's a bunch of super, super fancy aliens?
So the aliens are also giant wolves and ghosts.
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So so you know how when you drive your car next to this anthill, right? Sometimes you kick up a rock.
Or like sometimes I get out and I just start like pulling apart some of the ants and just leaving their carcasses around, and maybe I pee next to the anthill and then I laugh at them.
There's a
and
variety
then I run
of things
away.
Here. So like maybe you you kick up a rock and like that's like a glowing baseball, and maybe that rock smashes a bunch of ants, and you don't know. You're an ant. You don't know. You don't know what that rock was, where it came from. That rock could be your god for all you know. And then what if what if somebody throws a cigarette butt? There's just this hot glowing thing coming across the sky, and and then when you go back and get other ants, they don't see it because it just went, and there's not another one coming for a while.
Because it disappeared.
Yeah. Because it went over the hill. It went too far for you to see. Like it went into another dimension, basically.
And you don't have cameras because you're an ant.
Exactly.
Okay, but what if the ants did have cameras?
Their cameras probably
just refuse to get any kind of physical proof
because their cameras aren't fancy enough to catch something flying at that speed. They're tiny little ant cameras.
Okay, and why is it sometimes
they can't collect as much light?
Why is it sometimes the anthill like some of the doors just close just to be a little annoying, or like the anthill has moved 5 feet to the left? Or like the ants are pretending to be your gods on Mount Olympus and Mount Ant Olympus, I guess. And
well, that would be because a scientist on the freeway genetically engineered super ants to fuck with them.
Okay. Yeah, just cuz. Okay.
I'm getting to that. Let's talk about inner worlds.
Jesus Christ.
Shut up, man. Serious. This is really important to somebody, okay? Okay. Does the wide variety of anomalies observed at the ranch have any connection with human consciousness? Of course, much
Yeah,
of
apparently I'm
mainstream...
willing shit into existence over here.
Right. Exactly. Thank you. So, much of mainstream science simply dismisses such reported anomalies as products of pathologies, that's in italics, of human consciousness. But
Damn.
what if I'm unclear what the they is. What if they're doorways?
Okay.
From the human consciousness.
What if crystals? So what if I get off of my superhighway and I build them a super awesome anthill in the shape of a pyramid?
Okay, so think about... Okay.
We've been going on for like 2 fucking hours. Is this
I
a
know.
2-part episode, Ben?
No, I'm almost
done. What are we
done.
fucking doing?
Now you get it. Now you get it. This is why
What
I
do I
read these
get?
books. This is why I read these books. Isn't that fun? Isn't that a fun place to be? Where you're like 2 hours into something and you're just like, I know less than I knew before. It's just getting weirder. I love that. This is where Dune comes from. Okay. No, so basically he's talking about like shamanism. Like, what if you're going into like the spirit world? What if? I'm getting a vibe from you that you don't have a lot of respect for the spirit world. So we'll just move on.
Well, Ben, you're getting that vibe because I intentionally arranged my crystals in such a way to mask my true feelings with a fake bullshit vibe, and that's what you're picking up on.
Oh shit, you got some like topaz up in there?
Yeah, the worst rock of all. That's why it does that. That's what you need it for, Ben.
I use it to get increased electrical resistance.
I use it, it's my wife's birthstone, and she hates it, so we actually don't use it. So, except for in this case, when I'm hiding my brain thoughts with my topaz, Ben.
Let's talk about revolutionary science. They didn't do any of that. They did normal science. That's why they didn't find anything. But what if they did? You know, let's talk for a while about how it's actually your fault I didn't find anything. So this is the conclusion of the book. The book ends with a couple of really dumb things, and one thing I thought was kind of interesting. It goes on and on about how like Michio Kaku and a bunch of mainstream physicists, they're constantly finding stuff like quantum physics and gaps in our knowledge. Like, how does quantum physics marry with Einstein's theory of relativity? We don't know. There's so much we don't know. And what if string theory is right? What if everything's just a bunch of threads vibrating at different wavelengths or whatever? That's neat. So then they'll go on to say, after they said all that stuff about how like the bleeding edge of science supports a bunch of weird stuff and they're all about the weird stuff, they'll go on to say that scientists are too close-minded.
Okay.
That they won't take into account anything that doesn't fit their narrow definition of reality.
I could see how your total lack of physical evidence over years really, it was the scientist's fault.
They're about to make a really bold claim here, Nathaniel.
Okay, lay it on me.
What if we need to broaden our definition of the word evidence?
So you're saying you couldn't at any point get a picture? And so we need to just take your word for it at some point.
What if... I think they're saying, like, okay, what if there is something to a purely internal experience? Like, does a dream exist as its own world somewhere? Something like that. Something very, like, heady and esoteric, and how science is not perfectly explaining everything that happens, yet. And just because they couldn't get a picture, what if it can't be photographed? I think is what they're saying. What if there is something in this universe that the human mind can experience.
It really sounds like you didn't even fucking try. And you could have produced 3 dog corpses, and you didn't.
But I was there on nights and weekends, and I didn't. I mean, Gorman saw that, and I trust him because he's.
He passed the vibe test.
He passed the vibe check.
He had arranged his topaz in a way that allowed him to pass the vibe check.
I checked him for crystals. I had a pocket. He didn't notice, but I
way up there, though. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I had an amethyst butt plug in, and that allows me to detect lies. And I did not. Look, I don't super love this. I kind of get where they're coming from. Like, I am a person who does sort of value a more spiritual experience. I do think you can have spiritual experiences. I think you can have things that exist kind of only psychically, that you can't really record good data on. Does that mean you're connecting to other worlds? Quite likely not.
But what if I really want to, Ben?
Well, where I'm coming from is I think, like, if you have an experience like this, if you had an experience like you did at Skinwalker Ranch, or if you fucking just went and did a bunch of psilocybin and had a transformative experience. You keep hearing stories of people who do those psilocybin trips who say it was like the single most powerful spiritual experience they've ever had. They felt just connected to everything, and like ego death. And from that experience, it actually does change their perception of the world and how they conduct their life. I think you can have a transformative experience like that. And I think maybe a lot of this is just you need that to be something more. You need that to like be science, and it can't just be like an experience you had. I don't know. I think it's pretty weak, to be honest with you.
What if we just change the definition of evidence to, like, give me money to do some tripping balls, man?
Well, that's the next thing. That's where we need to be, psychonauts in the astral plane. Gotta really see if we can track down that fucking baseball, kill my dog. So there's one thing he says in the epilogue that is actually from a novel, but it's an interesting point. And the interesting point is, if you believe it is possible that there is an intelligence out there that either is somehow like intellectually beyond us or technologically beyond us, or both, and you believe that intelligence is capable of somehow interacting with us, like it can cross time and space and talk to us, then trying to study that phenomenon requires a different sort of scientific approach. Because so far everything we observe is a natural phenomenon that can be repeated in experiments. It's just sort of laws of the universe type shit. But if you're actually trying to study another person, then you have to sort of think about, they're only giving you the information they want you to have. And it becomes more like a espionage, maybe. Like, what if the intelligence you're trying to study is hostile? So, for example, say there was some presence at the ranch that was just trying to fuck with them because it thought it was funny. In a world where there are other intelligences, that's a possibility. That there is something out there that just thinks it's funny. How do you study that if it doesn't want to be found? Well, you'd have to get inside its head. You'd have to think like it. You'd have to try to think of it. You'd have to plan your experiments.
Think like an orb of light, and also a dog. I don't know how the two are related, Ben, but also Dracula was there. Maybe Dracula was the dog. I realized he could transform into a big old wolf, so
he might have
been.
He might have been. Now, they would ask you, as a takeaway, to consider the possibility that reality isn't as narrowly defined as we think. And I agree with that broad statement. And they would ask you to think, if you do believe in other intelligences, eventually we will have to think of a way to study something that could potentially be adversarial. And I think that's an interesting... Yeah, but I think that's an interesting point, is if there was something there fucking with you, it would be hard to study. Now, where it gets a little murky is what it asks of the scientific community. It puts a lot of onus on the scientific community to accept that premise as something that is likely to be happening, which I am not willing to grant, and something that is worth funding, which I'm also not willing to grant. And interestingly enough, neither is the guy who funded them. Like, when they came back to the guy who funded them with this report, he was like, okay, we're done with NIDS. And it's kind of hard not to agree with that decision. like we made the assumption that this was a real thing that was happening. We deemed it worth studying. We tried to collect evidence. We tried for years at great expense. And we didn't find anything. And you haven't adjusted your thinking based on that. And that's kind of the interesting thing. I like the book for the stories. I respect the book for not lying. And I laugh at the book for its conclusions, in spite of all the non-evidence it collected. I don't know. This one's a ride. This one's a wild ride. And if you were ever thinking about getting into any of this Bigfoot, whatever, any of this shit, this is probably the most approachable, most readable, most coherent UFO book I have ever read. And here at the end of 2 hours...
oh my fucking God. Ben, take her home. Jesus Christ. Fuck. Alright, we've got some patrons, Ben. And we've got Instagram and Twitter. Where the fuck are we? I think I went into a fugue state and I started seeing balls of light killing my cats.
Or when are
God.
we?
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. What's going on?
All right, we're on Instagram and Threads at Words About Books Podcast. On Twitter, for the time being, I'm really just there to check DMs. I'm not even posting anymore at WAB Pod. Got a blog at blog.wordsaboutbooks.ninja. You can check it out for no-nonsense reviews. I'll have to find a way to post one of this. And patrons. Patreon, Patreolies. We have a Patreon. We have a Patreon at patreon.com/WABpod. And we have some patrons, most patrons at this point. I don't know why they're doing this.
I don't know why either. I was trying to push the $2 tier, and everyone's giving us $10.
I designed the tiers so that like $5 is... it gets you everything that matters. But $10 gets you one other thing, and that's at the end of the episode right now. I will give you a shout out. So here we are. I don't understand you guys, but I'm going to now list you and thank you. I don't understand a lot of what I said today, though, so this fits.
All right, which of these people are lizard people, which of them are werewolves, and which of them are balls of light, Ben?
Well, I think Isekai Sensei-sama is a werewolf. He's got the beard.
Okay.
He's a hairy man. So he has a podcast called That Time I Got Reincarnated in the Same World as an Anime Podcaster. And, now that I think about it, maybe Hunt for the Skinwalker is an isekai. We considered the Outer Worlds theory, but we didn't consider the Other Worlds theory. Oh, we got Shy with a Y on TikTok. That is CHY space with a Y on TikTok.
Okay, Ben.
It's a difficult name to shout out in an audio medium. We have Jamie of the If You Want the Gravy blog, where he is reviewing movies all day, every day. Sometimes soda. I understand you just got some Faygo in, so...
Yeah, I got that Juggalo juice. I drank it before I came here, and I did not find enlightenment, so therefore all this stuff was bullshit because the Faygo would have worked, Ben. That's scientifically proven to
What if
expand
the
your
ranch
mind.
is a dark carnival? Think about that.
Why, alright, I mean, this would have worked then.
Ooh.
What if it
Disproven.
is
Disproven
a light
again.
carnival? Yeah. Alright, what else?
Then we have Jamie Walker. I don't know. Does she have a project she wants me to shout out?
No, she hasn't said anything, so...
Well,
If she does...
hey, Jamie.
There you go.
And then we got, last but not least, John Bierce, who is an actual author. Your name's on this episode, buddy. you gotta live with that. He is the writer of the Mage Errant series. We've covered it on the podcast. We will cover it again. He is also on Patreon. You can find him there where he is releasing his short stories. And I recommend you check them out. And with that, like the majestic
fuck outta here.
Sasquatch, I must fade into the next dimension.
I'm just going to put a Jack Wings beef jerky commercial here. You know that, right?
I always like to keep my favorite snack handy. Need a little excitement? Step into a Slim Jim. Oh, yeah.
Jack Links is in on it. Deep State. Deep Links.